right, we're all back on the record. All parties are present. Mr. Davidson, go ahead, sir.
Detective Rucker, if you'd be so good as to indulge us just a little bit more over the council table, if I could just ask you a few additional questions, please. You still have the last image we looked at with the...
Can you bring us up there?
From the glasses to the Mustangs right there.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Sure. No, this is exactly what I was hoping to bring up. Do you have the ability to zoom out any further from this perspective?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I anticipate that over the course of the trial, the jury is going to hear testimony about an apartment complex that's informally referred to as a courtyard. Are you familiar with the courtyard?
I am.
Okay. Is the courtyard depicted in this image that we're looking at here?
So at the bottom left of our screen, from this view, is the location you're talking about. So there's just another view giving more of a view of the address from the street.
Okay. And just because this pointer is perhaps a little bit more visible than the mouse cursor, if I'm correct, this building here is what is the courtyard?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. The vehicle that was next to Stephen's glasses is this location here, correct?
Yes, sir, next to the telephone pole.
And this here is the entrance to parking lot 7A, correct?
Yes.
Are you able to pan out and show us the entirety of parking lot 7A in one image?
At that view or closer?
That's actually perfect, thank you, sir.
Okay.
So this, if I'm correct, sir, this rectangle here is parking lot 7A.
Yes.
Now, is there any barrier here along the border between the parking lot and Franklin?
There's a fence
And then there's a break in the fence here where the entrance is, correct?
for the driveway, yes, sir.
Does the fence run the entirety of the length from the entrance down to the end of the parking lot?
To the other entrance, correct.
There's no other way to get out of the parking lot going this way other than through here, correct?
Reasonably, yes.
Okay. Are there any other entrances or exits from the parking lot?
There's another one due west, so down at what would be the bottom left of our screen here.
Okay. All the way down here to the bottom, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
And I apologize. This is the courtyard?
Now we're at the top left corner, yes.
Okay. And here's the light pole where the glass is located?
Yes,
And here's where Mr. Jones' Mustang is located?
also correct.
Okay. Shaky hands probably aren't. Okay. And then here is where the sloped area is, correct?
You're in that, yeah, there you go.
And the area that we measured before that was approximately 148 feet was from approximately here to Mr. Jones' car, correct?
Yes, sir.
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you may be testifying later on in trial?
Yes.
Do you think with the time you have between now and your future testimony, you'd be able to make that calculation regarding the slope of the rock area here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you be good enough to do that for us?
Would be happy to.
Thank you, sir. And if we could actually just go ahead and zoom in on that area, please. And I want to ask you one final.
On that, that landscape location?
Yes, sir, please.
Yes,
Okay, and then there's some bushes.
correct.
How far north do the bushes go along the edge of the sidewalk? Can we pull back and see?
Whoa, there we go. You want me to measure the distance of the bushes?
No, sir, just so we can sort of get a larger perspective. Basically runs the length of the area between the sidewalk and the parking lot up to where the gravel is.
Yes.
Okay. And I apologize, I actually do have a couple other questions to ask you. I believe earlier during direct examination, you showed us some perspectives from the scanning station by Stevens Mustang.
Yes.
Okay. Can we go back to that and perhaps just have you at a slower pace, just do a 360 scan so that we can see what the parking lot looks like from that perspective?
Sure.
And we're looking south, correct?
We are looking south. So you want me just to spin it in a 360?
If you could, please. That's not too fast over the radio.
Wow, I did the exact opposite, I'm sorry.
We might have to supply people with Dramamine if you could go a little too fast there.
And this is looking east,
It's looking east, yes, sir.
and this is, we're starting to look northeast, and the entrance is over in this area.
Correct. So now we're like a northeast location, or view, and we'll just continue making our way toward the north. This is that fencing you were referencing a moment ago?
The fencing looks higher than those vehicles, true?
It was taller than me, yes. And then continuing with the view, now we're northwest, panning to the west.
And this fence line, if you pause there, sir, this fence line runs all the way to the west of the parking lot?
It does. So down in that area, like I said, there's another driveway or an access into the parking lot. But it has a break in the fence, much like the one we were talking about moments ago.
Okay.
And we'll just continue west, southwest, and now looking south out what would be the front of the car.
Is there a way that we can measure the distance from this viewing station by Stevens' car to that other entrance at the far west end of the parking lot?
I don't know that I have that data in our scans, So what I don't know, sir, and why I'm hesitant to answer that, I mean, we know we can measure points within the cloud here, but I don't know which area to our right. You see this area I'm circling with the mouse that is nearest that light pole?
Yes, sir.
If that's my driveway, or if it's the area, see where I'm now referencing a little further to the right?
Yes, sir.
So I would be at an approximate at best.
Okay. I'll tell you what, would you be able to also follow up on that so we could get a better answer here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about, I know I've said that before, I'll try to be true to my word this time. We see that the door to Stevens' car is open.
Correct.
May I correctly assume that officers responding to the scene did the best they could to preserve the condition of the parking lot at the time that they responded?
Yes.
Okay. So all these vehicles that are depicted here in this parking lot are vehicles that were in the parking lot at the time the incident occurred?
Correct.
And all these vehicles that are in the parking lot are in the locations where they were located at the time the incident occurred?
Also correct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Is there a reason why we didn't do a scan, or you didn't do a scan at the end of that parking lot?
The scene was identified to the, I guess, the northern and eastern locations of that area.
Okay, in other words, there was no evidence down there for you guys to document.
Correct.
As far as you could tell, nobody had gone down to that area.
Correct.
All right. The scene was contained within that section of the parking lot where the scans were taken.
Correct.
All right. If you could zoom into that landscaped area with the rocks and the bushes and the deceased calm bruised body. Let's take a second look at that. Perfect. Detective, is there a curb right here that's raised?
There is.
If someone was standing on this area, they would have to step over this curb, is that correct?
Correct.
And then onto this unlevel surface of gravel?
Yes.
Okay. And you're going to tell us what this height difference is between the pavement and the sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
At some later time. I didn't talk about this before, but you've had some issues kind of navigating. Have you ever done one of these scans before?
Operating the scan station itself, no.
All right, this is the first time you testified about the Leica scan?
Correct.
All right. And just zoom back out a little bit.
More?
Yeah, let's get Franklin in there, Franklin Avenue. You did a measurement earlier from approximately this location, correct? This is on Franklin by that car, the black car?
Yes.
And the distance to the defendant's Mustang, this red Mustang over here?
Yes.
And I think you indicated earlier that was about 148 feet.
Correct.
The image, the diagram that you created in this case previously was about 151 feet.
Correct.
Can you describe why there's a difference of a couple feet?
Well, that would be where what point in the cloud I'm clicking from point A to point B, if you will. It's going to measure that distance.
Okay, so if you're pointing at the edge of the car as opposed to sitting inside the car, there may be a foot or two difference.
There would be a difference, yes.
That's how exact we're talking.
Correct.
All right. And the same thing, of course, from the car, this red Mustang, to where the deceased body lay. It would depend on where those points were identified, correct?
Correct.
And that, I believe you testified to, was approximately 95 feet.
Correct.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
And just to follow up on one thing that's asked you about, he asked you if all these vehicles were there and preserved that way when the police arrived. Remember that?
Yes?
There is one image right here. It looks, if you could zoom into there for us. There we go. This ghost image right here, what is this?
That is a police vehicle.
That was not there, obviously, when this shooting occurred, was it?
No.
So, and it looks like we can't see the complete car. Why is that?
Because it was moved. It was captured in the front of one scan, when we can see the side that it was captured in, but it had moved prior to the second scan.
Okay. And then just going back to, so you can see the defense red Mustang again. Defense asked you about this open door, if that was preserved that way when you arrived, and you indicated yes, right?
Correct?
Do you recall, was the glove box also open?
I don't remember.
Was that something that someone else documented, another police officer perhaps?
That's correct.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, I'll turn to members of our jury and see if they have any questions for Detective Rucker. Looks like we do, so I'll see counsel and court reporter at sidebar. He does have a question for you. You said there were multiple pairs of glasses. Who owned the other pairs, and what were your discoveries around them?
there was another pair of glasses found near the landscaping. And I don't know who those belong to, as I remember.
All right. Follow up, Mr. Barker.
Not at this time.
Is anybody defense?
No, Your
Can this witness be excused?
Yes.
I assume subject to recall? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Detective. You're excused.
Thank you.
Your next witness, please.
State calls Nicholas Piring.
You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or so you do affirm.
I do.
Thank you.
May I proceed, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Can you state your name for the record?
Nicholas Piring?
And can I call you Nick?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Nick, where are you from?
I'm from Chandler, Arizona.
All right. And do you live here now in Flagstaff?
I do.
And why is that? What are you doing?
I'm about to graduate in May, so I'm on my last semester here at NAU.
All right. And if you could bring that mic close to you
yeah.
so we can hear you a little bit. You can move it.
Apologies.
You move it right up to your mouth. Yeah, and just
Better?
get used to pretending it's not even there.
Okay.
So how old are you right now?
I'm 22.
And you said you're graduating. What are you graduating in?
I have my bachelor's in business administration and finance with an emphasis in international business studies.
All right. That sounds pretty fancy. So are you going to work somewhere after this?
I plan to work in Scottsdale, yes.
All right. With whom?
I'm not sure yet. A financial firm, preferably.
All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Nick, did you know Colin Brew?
I did.
And who was he to you?
My best friend.
All right. Did you also, were you a roommate of his as well at some point?
I was. We met freshman year in the dorms and had lived together ever since.
Were you part of the same fraternity as well?
I am.
And what was that fraternity?
Delta Chi?
Okay. Nick, I want to ask you about the night of the shooting, okay?
Okay.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Do you recall that being, and if you don't, just let us know, the evening of October 8th into the early morning hours of October 9th?
That is correct.
And this is 2015, right?
Correct.
Where did you live at that time?
We lived at 262 East Franklin Avenue in that apartment complex right off of Franklin.
Okay, and we've been seeing some visuals. You were here for that? Did you see
Correct.
some of that testimony? Okay.
Yes.
And we'll go back to that a little later, all right? Describe that complex area. Who lived there and how many people were there?
So each unit, I believe there's 8 units. Each unit has 3 people per unit, and there are 2 units with a courtyard section in between that
Okay.
separates them.
And it's been referred to, this area, as the courtyard.
Correct.
Is that why? Because there is an actual courtyard?
Because of the courtyard area in between the 2 buildings, yes.
Thank you. And so you lived in the building closest to Franklin Avenue?
Unit 1, yes.
Unit 1. And besides Colin, who else lived with you?
Michael Mullen?
Just the 3 of you?
Correct.
All right. And at that time, what year in school were you?
I was a junior. We all were at that time.
So how old were you?
I was 20 at the time.
And did you know the other people that lived across the courtyard in those other units?
Correct. Next door, I can't remember exactly their names, but we're a couple of friends of ours who are a part of the Sigma Chi fraternity. Across the way, we had friends, Nick Acevedo, Brandon Emerine, and Mitchell Highland.
Okay. And would you have parties out there in the courtyard with all these folks?
I have before, yes.
Okay.
Never hosted one, but there have been parties there.
All right. And it seems like almost a perfect location for a party. It's enclosed. There's a fence on one side of that courtyard area. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could say so.
All right, so that evening, let's go back then to that evening. It's October 8th. Is there a party going on that evening?
Correct, yes, there was.
And what time did that start, approximately?
Approximately 10:30, 11, perhaps.
Do you remember what day of the week it was?
It was Thursday night.
Okay. And were you hosting the party, or was someone else hosting the party?
We were not hosting the party. It was in the opposite building, across the courtyard.
Across the courtyard area?
Correct.
In that same complex?
Caddy corner to our unit.
Understood. And how many people showed up for this party?
Approximately 20, 25 people.
Okay, did you know all of them?
At the time in the building, I knew all of my friends except for a couple of females that I had not met before.
Okay, and was there alcohol present?
Yes, there was.
And did you consume any alcohol?
Yes, I did.
Today, do you recall how many drinks you had?
I was not counting at the night, no.
And was it beer? Was it something else?
Mostly beer, but I'm sure I had perhaps a couple of shots.
Okay. Other people were there, were they drinking?
Yes.
And any drugs that you had or saw being used?
No.
Okay. So at this party, was it, what happened? People just drinking? Was there music?
Yeah, there was music. People were drinking, talking, laughing, having a good time. Typical party environment.
All right. At any point, did someone tell you to turn the music down, or you guys are being too loud?
Yes. Less than an hour before the shooting, myself, I had personally spoke to 4 security guards, property security guards, on the street perpendicular to Franklin. I'm not sure the exact name. And I had spoke to them. They told me that we needed to turn the music down or they would inform the police. And so that's exactly what I did.
All right. Didn't want the police to show up, so you guys turned the music down?
Correct.
And what time of the night was this? Was this into the party a couple hours, or?
Yeah, this was approximately 40 minutes before the shooting, less than an hour, I'd say.
Okay.
So I guess that'd be around 12:30 or so, 1 o'clock maybe.
I'm going to ask you about some names, people that may have been there. Was Colin there?
Yes.
What about Nick Prado?
I do not recall, but I believe so.
What about Kyle Zantek?
Yes.
All right. After you turned the music down, did anything else happen during that party that caught your attention?
No.
So pretty uneventful that whole night?
Correct.
At some point, did you leave that party and go somewhere else?
When I heard Colin's voice, yes, I left that area.
All right, I want you to describe that. Where were you when you heard his voice?
So I was in the courtyard in between the 2 buildings. I was outside kind of monitoring, making sure people weren't coming in and people were leaving peacefully. I heard Colin's voice, and so if you bring up the diagram, I can explain a little bit easier. I came around into the parking lot of the courtyard complex, across the grass, across the street, into that driveway of the Mountain View parking lot and dorm.
Okay. And what about Colin's voice caught your attention?
Well, he was the only voice I recognized, and since I said I lived with him for the past 3 years at the time, I heard his voice and I recognized that he was in a verbal argument with other individuals.
Okay. Now, were you part of any type of confrontation occurring in Franklin Avenue in the street?
No, I was not.
Do you recall anybody knocking on a door and you exiting that unit?
No, I do not.
So you were outside of the courtyard area in the parking lot when you heard Colin's voice?
No, in between the 2 buildings in the stone pathway, if
Okay.
you will. Not the parking lot, but adjacent to it.
All right. And did you investigate what was going on?
I did.
So where'd you go?
So at that point, like I said, I went into the parking lot of Courtyard, across the grass towards Franklin Avenue, across the street into the driveway that separates the Mountain View parking lot and the dorm.
And what did you see as you approached that direction?
At that point, I saw Colin talking to 3 individuals, yelling back and forth, 3 individuals and him, and they had proceeded to just yell at each other verbally and a lot of chest puffing, I guess, if you will.
Did you see anybody punching anybody?
No, I did not.
Anybody kicking anyone?
No.
Anything physical at all?
Nothing physical at all.
Did you see anyone with weapons at that point?
Not at that point.
Later on, did you see someone with a weapon?
I never did see the gun. I only saw the flashlight.
Okay. So did you approach that interaction?
I did.
And were you running, walking?
Jogging up until I saw Colin fall, and at that point I sprinted and jumped over the bushes that you had pointed out earlier on the scene.
Okay. And let's take this just a step at a time, Nick. I know
Okay.
it's, I know we want to talk about what happened, but let me just take it a step at a time with you. As you're walking up or jogging up, as you described, did you see anyone else in the area besides Colin and these 3 other individuals?
I did not know.
Did you recognize these 3 other individuals?
I only recognized Colin.
Do you recall what Colin was wearing that night?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you recall what anyone else was wearing of those 3 people you talked about?
I do not.
As you were jogging up, did you hear what was being discussed?
A lot of derogative terms. Would you like me to express them?
Sure.
It was a lot of "fuck you guys need to leave," and then from their end it was basically "you guys can't kick me out," blah blah blah, and just back and forth, a lot of cussing, calling each other more derogative terms.
At any point did you hear someone say, "I'm going to kill you,"
I did not.
or "I'm going to hurt you"?
I did not.
It was words to the effect of "get out of here"?
Yeah, and fuck
then the
you,
profanity?
Profanity, yes.
Okay. As you got closer to what was going on, what did you see happen?
At that point, Colin was still talking to those 3, or yelling with those 3 individuals, and I noticed, and I guess he noticed at the time, a flashlight coming from the Mountain View parking lot, which would be the west side. And at that point, he turned from talking to these 3 individuals looking south to that rocky area looking towards the parking lot, where I saw him fall in the rocks.
Did you see where Colin was standing before he turned to that location?
I believe he was on the driveway, and then I think he took a step over into the rocks, 2 steps maybe.
Okay, so he was on the pavement, on that sidewalk that we've seen,
Correct.
and then he had to step over that curb to get to the rock section,
That would be correct.
and you said he fell. Describe what preceded that.
Well, I didn't hear the initial gunshots, and I saw him fall, and I wasn't sure why I didn't put the 2 and 2 together. So I didn't know what happened before that. He was yelling at those 3 individuals. He turned, took 2 steps maybe, and then collapsed in the rocks.
Okay. When you saw this, you described it as a flashlight. If you need to take a moment, just let us know, okay?
That's fine.
You described a flashlight coming from the direction of the parking lot.
That is correct.
Did you see who was holding it?
I did not recognize who it was because of the light.
Go ahead and take a drink, Nick. Describe how bright this light was compared to the lighting around.
I assume it was an LED light. It was quite bright. At the time, I thought it was like an NAU police officer or another officer who came to perhaps like break up the argument.
Okay. Did you hear anything that this person with the light said?
At one point, I think I heard "stop."
Anything about a gun?
No.
When you saw Colin fall in the rocks, you said you didn't hear the gunshots?
Yeah, correct. Sorry.
Okay. Or you don't recall today?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, it's yes or no, sorry, just for the record.
No, I did not hear the gunshots.
Thank you. And then you described earlier that you jumped over this bush or hedge area.
Correct.
And why'd you do that?
To get to Colin,
Why?
because I saw him fall.
Did you know at the time that he was shot?
I did not.
As you went to Colin's aid, what happened?
As I jumped over the bush, I was shot in my, well, first of all, I saw the flashlight turn to me. I was shot in my right arm, and at like a momentary second after that, I was shot in my left hip, and I fell from that jumping position into the pavement of the parking lot on my face.
Did you know at the time that you were being shot?
I didn't know. I didn't register it until afterwards, and then I realized when I saw a bunch of blood that I had been shot and we had been shot.
And I know it's difficult in a court setting, you know, we're breaking this down into second by second. How fast did this all happen?
It was very fast, perhaps less than a minute.
Did you see any interaction between Colin and this person with the flashlight that ended up shooting him?
No, I did not.
Did you see Colin lunge at him?
I did not see him lunge.
Did you see Colin, or did you hear Colin say anything to him?
I do not recall him saying anything.
Did Colin have any weapons?
No, he did not.
Did he have anything in his hands that you saw?
No.
And you described Colin taking a step or two forward before falling, is that correct?
Correct.
Once you noticed that you were shot, and did you have an opportunity to look over at Colin to see what was going on with him?
I did. At the point when I was shot, like I said before, I fell to my face, and at that point I rolled over to my back where my head was, I believe, facing the direction of Colin. So I tried to look over my shoulder and see, and at that point I saw he was unconscious in that rocky area between the rocks and the pavement of the parking lot.
Okay. Did you ever see him move or make any noise?
No, I did not.
After you rolled on your back and you saw what was going on, what do you recall happening after that?
After that, at the time, Nicholas Prado's girlfriend, Abby, came up and put pressure on my wounds, along with Nicholas Plecky and someone else who I didn't know at the time, whose name is Mikey. She also came up to help put pressure on my wounds.
Okay. You mentioned Nicholas Plecky. Was he a person that was at this party in the courtyard area?
Yes, he was.
You recall him being there?
I believe, yeah, yes.
And then you mentioned Abby Norcutt. This is Nicholas Prado's girlfriend at the time?
At the time, yes.
And was she also at the party?
I believe so.
And then you mentioned a third name, which is Mikey.
Correct.
Was she at the party?
I don't believe so. I believe she came out of Mountain View.
Okay. And they were attempting to assist you?
Correct.
What were they doing to help?
Nicholas Plecky had put pressure on my right arm. I believe Abby had put pressure on my left hip, and I think Mikey was putting pressure on the backside of my arm as well.
Just describe for the jury what you were feeling at that time.
At that time, I didn't feel any initial pain. I did feel like numbness in my hip, and I was unable to move my leg. And I was in a ton of shock, so I was yelling a lot of profanity.
Okay. Did you see what was going on with this person with the light who ended up shooting Colin and yourself? What was he doing?
I didn't see what he was doing, but there was a pause between when Colin and I were shot until I heard more gunshots.
Okay. How many gunshots do you recall hearing, if any, at this first moment when Colin was shot and you were shot?
Maybe 4 to 5.
All right. And then you said there was a pause?
There was a short pause, yes.
How long was that pause, if you know?
It felt like forever, but I think it was perhaps maybe 30 seconds, if that.
Okay. And were you moving your head around? Were you trying to see what was going on?
I was trying to, but I couldn't see the defendant at the time.
Was it difficult to move?
It was.
And these people you mentioned earlier, Nick Plecky, Abby Norcutt, Mikey, were they all with you during this entire time?
Until the police officers got there and the paramedics, and until they told them to relieve pressure from my wounds, they were there, I believe.
Okay.
Abby might have actually ran off, but I can't quite remember.
But you remember Mikey and Nick Plecky being
I remember
there?
Mikey was there definitely the whole time.
Someone want to... Spencer, can you find out where that is? Could we have that person go outside, please?
All right.
Just a second. Go ahead. What was it? Is she with the media? Is she with the media? Is she with the media? All right, folks, I'm going to remind the media, you need to make sure that those disruptions are non-existent. Otherwise, I'll either start removing people or removing cameras. Go ahead, Mr. Barker.
Thank you. Nick, before the interruption, I think we were talking about Mikey and Nick Plecky being there with you during that time. You said this time between shots seemed like forever, and you gave an estimate. What did you hear before those shots, if anything?
I was yelling, call an ambulance. So I mainly heard myself yell, call an ambulance, call the police, call 911. Mikey laid on top of me at that point and said to be quiet, that he was still shooting. And I think I yelled at her to get off of me because it hurt. And that's what I recall.
Okay. And how many shots did you hear this second time?
Perhaps another 4, 5 shots.
Did you see where the shots were going, or did you see anybody falling at that point?
I did not, but I think they were going in the direction they were going originally.
Okay. That is toward Mountain View dorm area?
That would be east, yes.
West to east, okay.
Yeah.
From the parking lot?
Correct.
And after you heard these shots, what do you recall happening?
After the shots, I remember the police and the paramedics showed up maybe 2 minutes after. There was just a bunch of chaotic yelling. I was yelling. Mikey had still putting pressure on my wounds, and then I think it was either the police or the firemen got there first and put like a bandage or something on my wounds to try to stop the bleeding.
Okay. Do you recall seeing Colin at all after that?
I do. When I was put in the stretcher, I recall seeing him. I was yelling because no one had helped him. He was still laying in the rocks. And I remember as they put me in the stretcher, they turned me so I was going head first into the ambulance, which was away from Colin, so I could see him at that point in the rocks still.
So let me just back up a little bit, Nick, and ask you directly. At any point were you part of any kind of physical altercation?
No, I was not.
At any point were you running or attacking the defendant?
No, I was not.
Were you attacking anybody?
No.
When you were taken from that scene by the medics on scene, you recall that transport to the hospital?
Yes.
Recall kind of what you were feeling at the time?
What I was feeling?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you know that you were shot in those 2 locations at that point?
At that point, yes. I told the paramedics that my wallet was in my back left pocket. I didn't know my blood type. My insurance card was in there. Where I was shot, they cut my pants off to get to my hip wound. And I remember yelling at them to go help Colin. And then I asked if he was deceased, and they confirmed that.
Okay. When you got to the hospital, what do you recall from that experience?
I recall laying in a hospital bed next to Nicholas Prado, and I think Zintek was on the far side of him. And there were curtains in between us, but I could hear his voice.
Okay, and was this type of a kind of a trauma bay that you were in?
I believe so, yeah. I've never been in one before.
Okay, these weren't individual rooms then?
No, it was one long room just separated with curtains.
All right, and were you being treated by medical staff at that point?
I was.
And what were they doing to try to help you?
They had put bandages on my wounds, and I believe they had put me on an IV and some sort of pain medication, perhaps.
Okay. How long were you in the hospital?
2 days. I believe I got out on Sunday, following Sunday, so Friday and Saturday.
What was the result of those shots to your body?
Well, muscle damage. I had a cracked pelvic bone on my left side, and then muscle spasms.
Okay.
Still.
Are you experiencing anything today from that experience?
Occasional muscle spasms.
Okay. Nick, you referenced the scan and the images before. Let's go to those now, okay?
Okay.
Okay. We're showing you what's been admitted as 316 now. And I'm going to let Mr. Shea navigate us here as I talk into the microphone. And I'm going to be in the way, so I'm going to come over here. All right, Nick, can you see that?
Yes.
Do you have a laser pointer up there?
I do not.
Go ahead.
All right, Nick. Can you describe what we're looking at here?
So that is the courtyard area that I referenced before in between the two building units.
Okay, and let's just do a 360 scan here. Do you recall where the party was at?
In that right unit. Sorry, that one there.
That one you're pointing to the right, that right
Correct.
number 5.
Correct.
Okay. And where was your unit?
If you keep going, my unit is caddy corner in this far unit over there.
Okay. The one at the very end.
Correct.
So if I'm facing this direction, we're looking at a fence and a couple of houses in the background. Which direction are we facing approximately?
That would be west.
And is this the parking lot that is adjacent to the courtyard area?
Correct.
So when you described hearing Colin's voice, where were you?
I was in front of the unit where the party was taking place, directly in front.
We go back to that then.
Yeah, if you scroll, I was standing like in front of the housing unit in that area right there.
Okay, right in the middle of the courtyard.
Correct.
So you heard Colin's voice, and then where did you go?
And then from where I was standing, I ran into the parking lot and then left across the grass into the street and across the street.
All right, let's take a different view. All right, from this location, it looks like we're looking at Franklin Avenue and also Mountain View Hall. Is that correct?
That's correct.
From the location of the parking lot.
Yes.
And let me specify the parking lot attached to the courtyard area, correct?
Yes.
All right, describe again where you went from here.
So I came from this direction and I ran across the grass that is here, like in between the cars, across the street into this driveway that is the entrance of Mountain View and the parking lot.
Okay. What are we looking at here, Nick?
So this is the driveway where I ran across from here at the parking lot. I ran across the street into this driveway that separates the dorm and the parking lot of Mountain View.
And as we scroll to the right here, are we looking now down that sidewalk area
Correct.
toward where Colin was?
Yes.
Can you point out where you saw Colin as you approached?
As I approached from this direction here, he was probably in this area, slowly walking with those 3 individuals in that direction. And at the time I saw him turn, he was right at the end of these bushes here.
At any point, did you see anyone surrounded by a group?
I did not.
Let me take a different view, and now I'm going to station number 2. Now, Nick, as we look at this, this police tape wasn't there when you were there, correct?
Correct.
And it wasn't light outside at the time, correct?
That is correct.
Even still, could you see what was going on in front of you as you're walking up that drive?
Yes, I could. Yes, I could.
And I think we can see there are some lights around here, correct?
That is correct.
In fact, there's a light right there, right at the corner of that parking lot.
Yes.
All right, what are we looking at here?
Colin.
Is that where you recall he fell?
Yes.
Nick, describe as you ran up where you were. You talked about jumping over a bush. Describe where you jumped.
So I came from this direction, and I jumped diagonal over this bush to get to Colin.
And then you described earlier that you were shot at that point.
Yeah, while I was jumping.
And where did you land? Show the jury approximately where you remember landing.
I believe I landed like right here.
And is that where you recall Nick Plecki, Mikey, and Abby Norcutt trying to help you?
Yes.
If you can remember, Nick, where was the person with that flashlight that you later identified as a gun?
When I had seen the light, he was probably right here in this parking stall.
That's the first time you saw him?
Well, I didn't see him. I just saw the light. But
Okay.
yes.
You recall if that light was pointed straight forward or up or down? Anything about that?
Once I saw Colin fall and I had ran and jumped to get to him in this direction, I saw the light just directly in my eyes at that point.
Okay, facing right at you?
Yeah, like right at me, yes.
So the light wasn't pointed at the ground at that point?
No, it wasn't. It was quite blinding, actually.
Now I imagine you've been camping or something like that where someone's shining a light at your face. Is it difficult to see?
Yes, it is.
And was that the situation you experienced that night?
Yes, it was.
At any point were you able to identify who the shooter was?
I think I identified him at the time as a male, 6 foot tall, white, dark hair. That's about all I could get out of it.
May I have a moment, Judge?
Sure.
Thanks, Nick. That's all I have.
All right, folks, let's go and take our second mid-morning recess. Please remember the admonition, 10 minutes.